Hello, welcome to Simple IELTS. Today we will talk about IELTS Writing Task 2, especially double question essay. In this lesson, you will learn what a double question type is, structure of a double question type essay, how to plan before writing, and how to write a double question type essay. So, first of all, I would like to explain a little bit about what is a double question type essay. So, essentially, it is an essay with two questions. Normally, in an IELTS Writing Task 2 essay, there's only one question. So this is an example of a double question type essay. First is there's a statement or a topic about something, and then there are two questions that are related to the statement. For example, let me read it for you. Some people feel that certain workers, like nurses, doctors, and teachers, are undervalued and should be paid more, especially when other people, like film actors or company bosses, are paid huge sums of money that are out of proportion to the importance of the work that they do. The questions are, how far do you agree, and what criteria should be used to decide how much people are paid. Okay, and then there's an instruction. You should use your own ideas, knowledge, and experience, and support your arguments with examples and relevant evidence. Also, there are two rules that you have to comply with. First is time limit is only 40 minutes, and then the minimum number of words are 250. Okay, so those are a double question type essay. Next, I would like to discuss about how to plan before writing. I would suggest you spend 5 minutes to plan for your essay. Why? Because to help you write smoothly, you have to know what you are going to write. So, before writing, that's why you have to make a plan for it. Okay? In planning, there are two things that you have to know about. First is gather ideas. In this case, you should decide whether you agree or disagree with the topic to answer the first question. And then, secondly, determine the criteria for deciding how much people are paid to answer the second question. And then, you have to prepare synonyms for words relating to the topic. Okay, next I would like to explain more about them. In gathering ideas, when you are faced with how far do you agree, just ignore how far. Just focus on do you agree. Okay, it's essentially the same thing. And then in this example, I would say that I agree that there are underpaid jobs, doctors, nurses, teachers, considering their importance. And then make a supporting idea. That is, for example, celebrities and companies executives make a lot of money despite their less significant jobs or significance compared to the first group's work. For example, to support further your argument that you agree, The Rock, a US celebrity, made 20 million US dollars per movie in 2020, but in the same year, teachers in USA only made 65,000 US dollars. Okay, so notice the gap of salaries between The Rock and teachers there. And then to answer the second question, what are the criteria to decide how much people are paid? For me personally, it is difficult to determine the criteria. Why? Because someone's income usually depends on the money flow in the industry where he or she works in. For example, in the entertainment industry, there's a huge flow of money, whereas in the medical and educational world, there's not much of money. There's not much money. Okay? And then let's prepare synonyms for words relating to the topic. For example, for doctors and nurses, we can say medical workers or medical professionals. For teachers, we can say educators. Film actors, we can say actresses, movie stars, or celebrities. And for company bosses, we can say corporation executives or firm management. And huge sums of money here in the written statement. Huge sums of money. We can say fat bank accounts, fat checks, or to be paid lucratively. And then next, importance here, importance of the work that they do, or in adjective, it's important. For noun, we can say significance, that's the synonym, and for the adjective, we can say crucial, vital, or pivotal. Next, I would like to discuss structure of an essay. Normally, in an essay, there are three parts. First is introduction, And then body, this is where you explain in details of your explanation of how far do you agree and what criteria should be used to decide how much people are paid. And then lastly, there's conclusion in the last paragraph. Okay, first of all, let's talk about introduction in the paragraph 1 normally. I suggest you spend 5 minutes to do this. It's not too long, so I think 5 minutes should be enough. In introduction, first, there are two things that you have to do. First is paraphrase or write in your own words the written information in the first sentence. And second, state that you are going to explain that you agree or disagree with the statement and the criteria to decide how much people are paid in the second and third sentence. Or in the second sentence only is fine. So this is an example how we paraphrase the written information. This is the written information. So I'll read it for you. There are people that are underpaid, such as teachers, doctors, and nurses, and worth getting paid more considering their important roles in our life compared to the deep-pocketed individuals, e.g., or for example, actors, actresses, and company executives. Okay? So some people feel that certain workers, I changed that into there are people that are underpaid, certain workers that are underpaid, such as teachers, doctors, and nurses. Undervalued has the same meaning with underpaid, certain workers, nurses, doctors, teachers. Same, I didn't change them. Or you can say that educators, medical professionals, that work too. And then compared to the deep-pocketed individuals, compared to film actors or company bosses that are paid huge sums of money. So they have the same meaning. Okay, so that's an example of how you paraphrase the written information. Next, state that you are going to explain that you agree with the statement and criteria to decide how much people are paid. So essentially, this part answers these two questions. For example, although I agree with this idea, so that answers the first question. The second one answers the second question. It is a Herculean task or it is a difficult task, same meaning, to determine the factors for setting the amount of money one has to be paid. Okay, it is difficult to decide to decide the factors to set the amount of money that someone has to be paid. Okay, and then next, let's talk about body part 1, or the second paragraph. I suggest you spend 10 minutes to do this. So, the second paragraph, this is where you explain whether you agree or disagree. In the planning part, we already discussed that I agree that there's a gap of salary amount between more crucial jobs and less crucial jobs. For example, the gap between the raw salary and that of the teachers in USA. First is write the main idea. So a paragraph consists of a main idea and then the supporting sentence and or an example. So the main idea is that I agree that there is a gap between the salary amount between jobs, particularly when we factor in their cruciality. And in the second and third sentence, you can say that, for example, in 2020, Dwayne Johnson, or also known as The Rock, made more or less 20 million US dollars per movie. Nonetheless, in the same year, the average salary of a high school teacher in USA was about 65,000 US dollars. So the gap was certainly noticeable. So this part supports your main idea that you agree that there are underpaid jobs considering their importance. Okay, and then in the next slide, we'll talk about the body part 2 or paragraph 3. Again, I suggest you spend minutes to do this. I think it's enough time for you to complete this part. In the third paragraph, you explain the criteria to decide how much people should be paid or how much people are paid. So in the planning part, I already discussed that it is difficult to determine the criteria. Why? Because someone's income usually depends on the money flow in the industry where he or she works in. So in the first sentence or the main idea part, we can say that For example, is it good to set salaries based on qualifications? Ideally, yes. Unfortunately, we do not live in an ideal world. So at first, I propose that we can set salaries based on qualification, based on the importance of jobs of someone. But that's not how the world functions. That's not this is not the world. This is not an ideal world. Okay. So next, we talk about the supporting argument and or the example. So one salary usually depends on the amount of money generated in the industry that person works in. Even though doctors and nurses are literally lifesavers and teachers are life changers, not much money flows in what they do. Meanwhile, the entertainment industry in a country can produce millions or even billions annually, explaining why celebrities have fat bank accounts. Okay, so that's an example of how we write body part 2. Next, we talk about conclusion in the last paragraph or paragraph 4. Because it's short, 5 minutes should be enough to do this. So um, in planning, I suggest you spend 5 minutes, and then in introduction, another 5 minutes. In the body, part 1, part 2, each 10 minutes. And then in conclusion, it's 5 minutes. So in total, we should spend 35 minutes to do this, to complete an essay. And then the remaining 5 minutes, because 35 plus 5 is 40, the remaining 5 minutes, you can use that to recheck your essay, whether there are words written incorrectly or things like that, to minimize mistakes. Okay, so in conclusion, we can write the conclusion by restating whether you agree or disagree and restating that it is difficult to determine the criteria of how much people are paid. So essentially, conclusion is a summary of what we already wrote previously in the body part. For example, in conclusion, I agree that the income of nurses, doctors, and teachers should be higher due to their meaningful impact in improving patients' and students' life. And be that as it may, the extent of one's work industry in making money sets the amount of money that the workers take home. And that is the reason why it is difficult, if not impossible, to decide the line of salary. Okay, so that's about the conclusion. This is an example of a double question essay that we already discussed from the beginning, where in the first paragraph we wrote the introduction. The second paragraph we talk about that I agree with the topic statement. In the third paragraph or in the body part 2, we talk about the criteria. Well, to me, it is difficult to determine the criteria to decide how much people are paid. And then in conclusion, that's just the summary of what we already wrote. And by the way, the minimum number of words are 200. The number of words that I already wrote are 268 words. So that already more than 250, the minimum number, which is 250 words. Okay, so that's my explanation on double question essay in IELTS Writing Task 2. Thank you for watching until the end, and see you in my other videos.